Hey everybody, John Brown here again, and today I'll be doing a quick review for Praetor, where we will be playing Romans on the outskirts of the Empire, building Hadrian's Wall, trying to do it the most efficiently to get prestige so that Rome will like us. It's a pretty interesting worker placement game where it has a mechanism where, a little bit like Village, where your workers age, but in this, they actually get more experience and allow you to do more things. And then when they get old, they don't die, they go into retirement. Then we have to pay their pension. In this game, we're trying to balance that, trying to level up all of our workers and potentially get them into retirement, which scores us points, but also kind of removes them from the game. But we'll see how all that works. And it's a pretty interesting mechanism, but does it function well in the game overall? Well, I'm going to do a real quick look at how to play it and then tell you what I think. Okay, to start the game, we're going to start with some resources, and these represent wood, stone, marble, and weapons. Well, we are defending Hadrian's Wall, so we might need some weapons to help actually defend it. We have some money. Bear in mind the kind of gold-looking coins are actually the 1s, while the more silver-looking ones are the 5s, as we can see by the Roman numeral. And then we have some player boards laid out here. Each one of these player boards is two-sided. Every side with the A side is the same, and then each B side is slightly different, kind of similar to Seven Wonders. The game suggests everyone plays with the A sides the first few times, and this recommendation I would actually suggest to follow. But there are going to be some differences. What you're going to have to pay your workers might be different. For example, this board, instead of having to pay each retired worker 1, you have to pay them 2. However, you get more points when you retire workers. So there might be some different in costs and things like that. And they do seem to be fairly well balanced, but you probably want to understand the game a little bit before you start messing around with those. We're going to start with, like I said, some resources. We're going to start with a level 1, a level 2, a level 3 worker, and then other guys in our villages that aren't yet ready to start working. We're going to start with these, with more players, we're going to start with more of these mines where you can basically go to get gold. So if I were to go to a mine with a level 1 worker, with 1 pip up, I would get 1 coin. If I would go with my level 3 worker, I would get 3. And these guys will level up depending on what they do. However, I own this one, so I can go there for free. But if someone else wants to go there, they would have to pay me 1 coin. The 3 spaces in the middle represent a space where I get more workers. If I do that, I'll have a worker come here. At the end of the round, I'll move here. And at the end of the next round, I'll finally have them available. There is a tile that can change that, however. But in general, there's a delay of getting workers. Actually, I'm going to talk about this one first. I can go to the market. One thing I like about this game is you can buy and sell as much as you want. The prices are fixed based on what is on your player board, so they might vary if you're playing with some B-sides, but the prices are fixed and I can buy and sell as much as I want of any resource all the times I want to make things work. It can make for a little bit of a long turn, but also you can take your turn while people are making change also. And then this space in the middle is the space we actually go to work on the wall. So during this round of the game, if I have a marble and a weapon, I can work on building the wall. If I do, I'll get 6 points. I'll flip it over. Every time I build a wall section after that later in the game, and only one of these will come out per round, I will get, so for example in the second round, if I build this one, and this one takes a lot of money, I'll get these 6 points plus these 3. And then again, if I build another wall later, I'll get, whatever the wall section says, plus however much bonus I have out there. So chaining on building the wall can be pretty powerful. So, how do we get resources and such? Well, on a turn, you can go to any one of the spaces available, one of them being to build the wall, but you can also go and build a section. If I want to build a tile, I have to pay the cost in the upper left-hand corner. So for this one, I need to pay 2 gold, basically, relatively inexpensive to build. It gets me 1 point, and this space generates wood. And then whenever I place it out onto the board, I can get a certain bonus. So for example, if I were to place it, and you can flip them around or whatever, like this, I would match the tiles in the corner. So this green matches this, and this purple matches that, so it'll give me 2 points. If this was also green, it would actually give me an additional 3rd point. So instead of just getting 1 for building it, I would actually get 4. So placement can be relatively important. At the end of the round, we're going to call all of our workers back. Any worker who built something, well, we'll put a colored marker on it to show that this is ours. So again, if anyone else, any other player wants to go to that space, they have to pay us the cost to go there. In this case, it's a coin. In this case, 2 coins, 3 coins. There's different costs. And any worker who built a building will come back and level up. So this will now be a level 2 worker who can get us more things. Any worker who went to a red space is representing doing hard work, going into the mines or something like that. They will level up. Any worker who went to a blue space, just going to the market or things like that, just recruiting a worker, they do not level up. That is important because once a worker, if I send my level 5 worker out to get 5 resources or whatever, which is great, but once he gets to level 6, he actually goes into retirement. Now at the end of a round, I still have to pay for all my workers, and on the basic board, all your workers are 1 coin up to here, and then you eventually have to pay more if you get more than 4 active workers and 1 for each retired worker. Now this is important because it will affect our morale. For every coin I can't pay, my morale will go down 1 level. So it goes to -1, -2, and then it starts getting worse. And our tiles will see that let us get our morale up. But also when a worker retires, we'll get a number of points on our victory board. And this shows us when we're age 1, we'll get 12, and in age 2, we'll get 8. So we'll go over what some of the buildings do, what are in each age. The game can end in 2 ways, when all of these are gone, or when we don't have any buildings to draw from the draw pile. So let's take a look at some of the age 1 tiles, and these will come out randomly, and you don't know what order, so that actually can be a big factor in the game. For example, getting to the market first so that you can get the right resources to build the wall can be really important. A second market will come out. You'll have to pay the player who owns this one 2 coins instead of it being for free, but it might not come out until later. There's also another space to generate workers that you'll have to pay someone to go to, and generating workers is vitally important. I can't overstate that because your workers are also going to retire eventually, and you might end up with only 1 or 2 actions in a round if you don't generate some workers, which can be really, really bad. Then there are resource generating spaces. So wood generates, based on the number of pips of the worker who goes there. Stone, marble. Weapons, or the lightsaber factory as we like to call it, work slightly differently. In order to generate weapons, you can go there, pay 1 to the owner, unless you're the owner, and you can trade in as many wood cubes as you want to get as many weapons as you want. So you're upgrading your wood into weapons or lightsabers, kind of advanced for the time. There are also some other buildings. This one gives you 2 coins for every active worker you have, not retired workers or workers that are in training still, but that can be useful. 2 points for every worker. This is one of the ways you can get your morale up. For every 2 buildings that you control out on the board that have your marker on it, you go up 1 level in morale. Here's one that you get 2 morale for every retired worker. And there are ways to boost your morale so that you can also score points for your morale, like here. Going to this tile allows you to score points based on your morale. So you might be able to score, so it goes up to 16. Let me focus in on here on this board, and other boards are different if you're playing on the B side, but that can potentially score you a lot of points. So these are temples that allow you to do things like that, and there are more temples in the second age. Now these 2 tiles work slightly different. They are city tiles. So we talked about the blue tiles you don't level up, the red ones you do. These multiple players can go to. So you can place a disc, on this labor camp right here, and it basically allows you to take a worker out of retirement for that round, which can be really powerful. Now you have to pay a pretty decent price to do so, but by placing my disc here, I can take my level 6 worker and place him out on, let's say, a marble generating space and get 6 marble. He still counts as retired. I don't get points for him retiring again at the end of the round. He was already retired. But it allows me to use those guys for a round to get more actions and to get powerful actions. This one works slightly different. It only works at the end of the round. You can pay whoever owns it a stone, or you can do it for free if you have a stone, and move all your workers in training straight into the workforce. So you won't get your workers the round you recruited them, but you'll have them on the next round instead of having to wait another round in between to get them. One thing that's important to bear in mind is that these tiles will on the back also say, based on the number of players, you'll have more or less tiles. So you'll have multiples of some of the buildings too, and some buildings you just wouldn't have. The resource generating and stuff like that are obviously going to be available in every game. So in Age 2 we see some of the same tiles we saw before, gaining morale for workers, being able to bring out a retired worker, gaining points for morale, gaining points for workers, and things like that. However, there are some just straight-up victory point tiles. So, for example, this one cost a whole lot to do, but it's 15 points, and then plus the bonus for matching up the mosaic tiles and stuff like that. 19 points for that one. And then here's some more kind of temple type things where we're going to get a coin for each building we control, a point for each building control, and some of the more interesting ones. When I first saw this, I assumed it was 1 point for every wood and stone pair and 2 points for every marble and weapon, but it's actually 1 point for each one of either one of these and 2 points for each one of either of these, which can be really powerful. Okay, so that's a quick look at how to play. So what do I think about it? Well, let's talk about some of the components. Components are solid. These are nice, good tiles. The player boards are nice. The colors are a little wonky, but sometimes telling the difference between the gray, black, white cubes, especially on the tiles, can be a little tricky for some people. The mosaic thing is interesting. I'm really neither here nor there, but really interesting mechanism. I went and got this game as soon as I could after watching Rado do a run-through of it. I thought that idea of leveling up your workers, when to retire them, how to score points, stuff like that, was really interesting through the first age. However, like many games that have things separated into ages, there is the gather your resources and then score points off of your engine, stuff like that. This game, in my opinion, doesn't necessarily do that all that well. It's a game where I enjoy the first stage in many ways more than the second. There was a time where legitimately, like, this tile came out and I had a boatload of both of these, and I don't remember how many points it scored me, and I stopped going to it. I've played this a few times now, and each time there's been a runaway leader. One game got into the 300 point range, I mean over 300, and you know, when I saw this town, I looked up to make sure, wait, is this a mistake? This seems overpowered. In general, these, if you have a lot of morale, if you have a lot of these resources, you're obviously going to want to go to those tiles, and players can block you. If you're in the lead, you don't get to go first, but then they have to waste one of their turns, you know, wasting their advantage of going first, going to a tile that potentially scores them very few points just to stop you from scoring it, and you're already in the lead, so doing something that doesn't score them a lot of points doesn't really help. So there is a catch-up mechanism where at the end of each round, the players who are in last get to go first, similar to Fresco, where you get to choose your time and stuff like that. And it's not a bad idea. Even in a game, instead of starting with more money based on what player you are, you start with more points. And so the individual mechanisms work really well. The idea of, oh, I can go get 5 resources, but I got to retire, and there's not a way to bring them back out yet, or maybe there is, and if I own the labor camper, I can bring them out. That's great. That might give me resources. So the game starts off, and when I saw that run through, I was like, this is a game I'm really going to like. And it's a game I really wanted to like, and I've played it a couple times and tried to like it, and I don't hate it. But it just, and this is a very subjective thing, and you might find your opinions different than mine, and I try to be as fair as possible. You know, and if I say something I don't like about a game, I try to be very clear about what it is, and in this instance, I just don't find it all that fun. Actually, I said I couldn't think of an example, but actually maybe this is an example. I can go to a tile and score maybe 40 points if I have a lot of resources. So maybe you're trying to have this engine where I'm going to score my morale at the end of the game. I'm going to have it maxed out to score 16. Well, you played all along to have this strategy to do these things, and maybe that tile where you score from your morale doesn't come out until later, or maybe if it does, then you can spam it, but that individual placement is as valuable as the endgame scoring bonus. And I feel like maybe the points are a little out of whack on the tiles. The individual tile placements can be too powerful, while the long-term strategy isn't that valuable. So depending on when tiles come out can make certain plays way more valuable. The wall is always valuable, but overall I wonder if it's just a little out of whack, where the tile placements are a little too much, and when those tiles come out dictate the game more than how well you're actually playing. I could be wrong about that. I read on The Geek there are some varying opinions as to whether the tiles are overpowered or not. I personally think they do, and even though I love some of the mechanisms, that leads to some very mixed feelings on Praetor. Alright, thanks a lot. If you have any questions, comments, let me know, and we'll talk to you guys again soon. Bye.